My name's Emily, and I chose to do my passion project on yoga and running. A little bit about me. Let's see. I've been doing yoga for probably close to 10 years now. I started in high school and I really got into it during college. And during the whole pandemic, I decided to basically really get into my yoga practice, which inspired me to become a yoga teacher. Although it's taken me a while because of so many different reasons, I'm happy to be nearing the end of my yoga teacher training. Through everything else, though, I have been running for not that long actually. I would say this is probably my third year of running. I live in Boise, Idaho, and we have really, really pretty trails and mountains and foothills, and so I'm really lucky to be able to trail run. And running is a whole different ball game. It takes a lot of physical and mental endurance, which is something that I really love about it. And it really pushes your body to get out of its comfort zone, basically. You have to focus on the trail in front of you and make sure that you're not running over rocks and tripping, and you could roll off the side of a mountain. But I really appreciate it because it just pushes me to get outside and appreciate nature and get farther than I would hiking, basically. So that's kind of what inspired my interest in trail running, is just being able to get outside. But recently I've gotten more into road running, and that's just primarily because I want to be able to push myself to get further on the trails. So on March 26th, I'm actually running technically my first half marathon on roads. So that's just something that I'm training for, and training is interesting because I'm sticking to a training schedule, which is basically about 3 miles each day. We get one rest day, and then on the weekends I'm pushing for long runs. But my whole passion project is about how yoga affects my running, and I'm doing yoga every day. Gosh, sometimes even twice a day. I'll do about an hour long practice, and I feel like I'm always stretching and doing running workouts and doing all sorts of other things to help my running. But yoga has really made me aware of my breath and how that translates into running, as well as other physical stretching. Like, for example, downward facing dog is really good for your Achilles, and basically just crescent lunge and all sorts of other things that stretches your legs. I've noticed that because I have had troubles with my Achilles. Nevertheless, I am so excited to talk about how yoga relates to running. So, to begin, yoga is a fantastic complement for runners. It aids in developing muscular strength, flexibility, and balance, which can reduce the risk of injury, and it also helps you improve your mental focus and breathing efficiency for running. During the course of an average mile run, your foot will strike the ground 1,000 times. The force of impact on each foot is about 3 to 4 times your weight, which is very noticeable after I read this sentence and I went on a run. It's not surprising then to hear runners complain of bad backs and knees, tight hamstrings, and sore feet. The pain most runners feel is not from the running in and of itself, but from imbalances that running causes. I've found that if you bring your body into balance through the practice of yoga, you can run long and hard for years to come. Although yoga and running lie on opposite ends of the exercise spectrum, the two need not to be mutually exclusive. In fact, running and yoga make a good marriage of strength and flexibility. Runners who stick with running are most likely structurally balanced individuals who can handle the physical stretches of the workout with minimal discomfort. Yet many runners don't survive the imbalances that running introduces. Often they suffer from chronic pain and are sidelined by injury. A typical runner experiences too much pounding, tightening, and shortening of the muscles and not enough restorative, elongating, and loosening work, which yoga is really, really good for. We all know that. Without opposing movements, the body will compensate to avoid injury by working around the instability. Compensation puts on muscles, joints, and the entire skeletal system. If you're off balance, every step you take forces the muscles to work harder in compensation. Tight muscles get tighter and weak muscles get weaker. A tight muscle is brittle, hard, and inflexible because muscles act as the body's natural shock absorbers. Ideally, they should be soft, malleable, and subtle, with some give. Brittle muscles, on the other hand, cause joints to rub and grind, making them vulnerable to tears. Muscle rigidity occurs because runners invariably train a sport specific manner. They perform specific actions over and over again, and their focus is on external technique. This repetitive sports training or any specific fitness conditioning results in a structurally out of shape and excessively tight body. For example, a lot of the running exercises I do is like strength training, which is just like repetition, repetition, strength, 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 and there's not a lot of like restorative, like deep tissue, like regeneration, I've noticed. Something that I really like to do while practicing yoga is really focus on moving with my breath. For example, if I'm in Warrior 2, I will inhale and rise up, and then exhale and rise back down into Warrior 2, and just be really mindful of where my body is at while I'm breathing. And I've noticed that it really transfers into running because when I'm running, your stride goes with your breath. So you breathe, inhale, 3 strides, and exhale, 3 strides. So there's really a lot of correlation that I've noticed as far as breathing goes, and I'll get into that a little bit more on the next slide. One thing that I've noticed while practicing yoga and running is my overall awareness of my body and what it needs. All runners have injury pretty much 24/7. I've dealt with shin splints, Achilles tendonitis, all sorts of different injuries that will basically make you stop running. But being aware of your injuries and taking proper care of them is key. The most important thing you can do when you feel something coming on is be aware of it and act accordingly. Catching the injury early can even save you from having to take a break from running. Yoga's internal focus helps center your attention on your own body's movements rather than on external outcome. Runners can use yoga practice to balance strength, increase range of motion, and train the body and mind. Asanas move our body through gravitational dimensions while teaching you how to coordinate your breath with each subtle movement. The eventual result is that your body, mind, and breath are integrated in all actions. That is my technique that I was using through my Warrior 1 pose, or excuse me, Warrior 2 pose. Through consistent and systematic asana conditioning, you can engage, strengthen, and place demands on all of your intrinsic muscle groups, which support and stabilize the skeletal system. This can offset the effects of the runner's one-dimensional workouts. In addition to physically counteracting the strains of running, yoga teaches the cultivation of body wisdom and confidence. As we develop a greater understanding of our bodies and how it works, we become able to listen and respond to messages our body sends us. This is especially important in running. I know for a fact I've experienced it. These feel-good chemicals also double as nature's painkillers, which can mask pain and onset of injury or illness. This is also known as a runner's high, and I usually get into it at about mile 4. And as I continue running, I will notice that I don't feel the pain in my shin splints or my Achilles tendonitis. And so it really works as a painkiller, which can also be really dangerous because if you're not listening to your body, it'll take you off your feet. Let's see. Without developed body intuition, it's easier to ignore the body signals. Awareness translates to daily workouts too. You learn through the practice of yoga that each day is distinct, much like each run. Your energy levels fluctuate daily, even hourly. Thus, it's important to have a sense of your reserves. The calmness you glean from yoga practice allows you to manage and economize your energy. You can learn to intuit where you are given on a given day and what resources you have to give. Therefore, you don't power drive through every workout mindlessly, but rather respect your body's limitations. For example, today on my run, I noticed that I was more out of breath than usual, which is something that all runners experience. Sometimes you just have off days. And today I chose to push through my workout and continue my run. But other days I'll just say, you know what, I'm not going to run today, and I will maybe go on a light walk or something like that. But the whole point is to just really listen to your body and what it's needing. We can, however, maximize those varying energy levels by focusing on another non kinetic aspect of yoga, relaxation. When you're able to bring your body into a state of response, you become more effective at using and conserving strength. If you're in a contracted state, tight muscles, limited range of motion, chronic pain, your body requires more energy for all activities, running included. Relaxation allows you to burn energy at a more efficient level. The resulting increased vigor means a greater freedom of movement and ultimately more enjoyment of all your physical activities. Tension is the athlete's downfall, and breath awareness is the key to reducing it. The body is the sum of its parts. An impairment of one affects them all. A bad back is going to affect your ankles just as weak knees can throw off your hip alignment. For example, shin splints are the result of a seemingly minor misstep, an uneven distribution of weight that starts with the way the feet strike the ground. Each time the foot hits the pavement unevenly, a lateral torque travels up the leg, causing muscle chafing and pain up and down the tibia known as shin splints. Knee pain, too, is related to other parts of the body. If the ankles are weak or the hips are not aligned, that can put strain on anterior ligaments in the knees. Meant to work like a train on a track, a knee thrown off balance is equivalent to train derailing. That is very true. Due to consistent forward motion, hip flexor muscles shorten and tighten and can cause hypertension in the lower back. This constantly arched position holds tension in the back and can hamper the fluidity of the hamstring muscles as well. What does this mean for a runner with pain in our lower back or a painful heel condition? Well, we can't ignore our body's signals. Take a break when our body needs one, learn to intuit when rest is appropriate, and start incorporating yoga postures into the warm up and cool down of portions of your workout, which I will go over yoga postures at the end of this presentation. As we think of running as the linear part of our workout, and yoga is a circular complement. It's kind of like hydrating before we go on our run. There's no need to be sidelined by injuries and discomfort brought on by your running program. Chronic injuries can eventually self-correct through a gentle yet consistent yoga practice. Remember, our bodies are on our side, and it is inherent intelligence to bring about a state of equilibrium no matter how many times our feet hit the pavement. Conscious breathing and pranayama exercises, which soothe the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems and relax the entire body, can be great benefit to runners. Many runners know that improving our VO2 max aerobic capacity is vital for running and racing success. Runners with a high VO2 max have the capacity to pump large amounts of oxygen-rich blood into working muscles. Maximum oxygen intake is a crucial psychological variable determining performance and endurance for runners. With pranayama and asana conditioning, you can maximize the size of your pump and the quantity of fresh blood coursing through your body. A somewhat vigorous yoga practice can increase your oxygen capacity. Pain prevention, even the most centered and relaxed runner, can face energy, the bane of all athletes. Damage to a runner's body is often the result of overuse instead of collisions or falls. It comes back to balance, symmetry, and alignment. Since our required reading of the yamas and niyamas for the 200-hour certification, I feel like my whole life has changed. I've read the book through at least 5 times because I connect with the teaching so deeply. It is truly like my Bible. The yamas and niyamas have also changed who I am as a runner. I became vegetarian right after I read this book for the first time, and although I wasn't much of a meat eater before, it's been so nice to know exactly what's going into my body, and I feel like I have taken control of my nutrients, which has given me much more energy for running. So, practicing ahimsa on a daily basis has been really good for mindfulness, and it's not even about nonviolence to animals, it's nonviolence on the trails, making sure we stay on trail, making sure we're taking care of our earth and things like that. The yamas and niyamas are so relatable to everything with running. Um, for example, non-access is something that I just went over. We have to listen to our bodies, and although running 13 miles is a lot, preparing for that, I really try to remember non-access, because I know that right now, if I really wanted to, I could run 13 miles, but I'm just taking the time to get there. Um, Saucha, purity, is something that I practice on a daily basis as well. Um, it goes hand in hand with ahimsa as well. I find that purity and something as simple as the water I drink, what I'm putting in my body, purity of, gosh, what my clothes are made out of, just really taking an account kind of my space and what I put in my body and on my body, just being completely pure. Um, the tapas, those go hand in hand with running, because you have to be disciplined to stick to a training program. Gosh, to even stick on trail, it can be hard. You can have a lot of off days, and you just have to have discipline and push yourself to get out on trail, or on the road. And once you do, I notice that I do end up feeling a lot better. Um, so I talked about a runner's high a little bit earlier in the presentation, and when I get into my runner's high, I find that I really have an interesting sense of inner exploration. I notice that I'll run miles and I won't even have a thought come into my head, which is really interesting because it really turns into a meditative state. And other times, I'll really have a lot on my mind, and once I start running or get into a runner's high, um, I'm able to kind of look inside myself and really explore kind of what I'm feeling, or something that I'm needing to acknowledge, or it's almost like journaling as I'm running. And surrender is interesting because sometimes runners have to surrender. Like, I had really bad shin splints and I couldn't run for 2 weeks, and I just had to surrender to what my body was telling me, which is really hard. It was an emotional time because I didn't want to surrender. I knew that after 2 weeks I would be a little more out of shape. My muscles wouldn't be as strong as they are right now, or I was worried about what my body would be going through as I'm not being disciplined with my running. But I did read that part of our book again, and I really was able to surrender, and I was back up and running, I think, a week and a half after that. So all in all, the yamas and niyamas are absolutely like a Bible to me, just an everyday life, but they are really really helpful for running as well. A book that inspired me to choose running for my passion project is actually a book called Yoga for Runners. So I'm going to go over some points that I really found were interesting from that book. Runners are often reluctant to try yoga, but according to Christine Felstead, the creator of Yoga for Runners training program, runners have a tremendous amount to gain from adding yoga to their fitness regimen. She says that yoga restores the body's balance and symmetry through the physical postures, especially sequences that are designed specifically for runners, which I will go over here in just a sec. Many runners feel tremendous benefits even after just one yoga class, often expressing that they feel taller, their lower backs feel better, and they have greater body awareness during their runs and during their daily activities. In her book, Felstead outlines 3 benefits runners will receive by practicing yoga. Better running. Yoga stretches and lengthens the muscles so they become more supple and able to react while running. This increases muscle stiffness and increases range of motion in joints, namely the hips, shoulders, ankles, and spine. Longer hamstrings and greater mobility of the hip joint create a longer and more fluid running stride. In addition, the strength and length gained by the muscles help to stabilize the skeleton, resulting in faster running. A flexible joint requires less energy to move through a wider range of motion, while a flexible body creates more energy efficient movements. This results in greater ease while moving about through the day and potentially an improvement in athletic performance. Runs will be less exhausting and more enjoyable. The second is healing and avoiding injuries. Improved symmetry, alignment, and balance through yoga prevents injuries from occurring while healing stubborn, chronic, and recurring injuries. Yoga postures will help align the knee joint while strengthening the arches of the feet for better shock absorption. This reduces the weight-bearing impact of running. Runners have a high threshold for dealing with pain and learn to live with many aches and pains as part of daily living. Runners are often amazed at how many of these nagging discomforts are eliminated with yoga practice. The last thing is post-race recovery. A yoga practice after racing helps to eliminate the stiffness caused by lactic acid buildup in muscle tissue. Students who force themselves to attend a yoga class the day after a marathon are amazed at the speed of their recovery. Recovery times are reduced so runners are able to get back on the road quickly and in good health. While there are no guarantees in life, a regular yoga practice is a safe bet for reducing the risk of injury or helping cure a current one. Many runners today are experiencing tremendous benefits, and the best results are from those who have made yoga a part of their weekly workout routines. After some time, they marvel at how injury-free they have remained, regardless of the miles they run. In these next couple of slides, I'm going to show you some running posture asanas that I have found really work for me as a runner. First is something as simple as mountain pose. This is a great pose to implement into your warm up, and although it may feel weird, it's really good for posture and for bringing awareness into the body and kind of getting your brain into a meditative state for your running. How to stand tall with a neutral spine and your feet about shoulder distance apart. Lift the crown of your head toward the sky as you roll your shoulders back and lift your chest for good posture. Fix your gaze straight ahead of you and raise your arms up with your palms facing forward. Inhale as you hold the pose for a count of 10. Then exhale as you lower your arms back to your sides. Next is Warrior 3. Stand straight with your arms beside you, then shift your weight to your left leg. Move your right leg behind you as you hinge at your left hip and bring your body parallel to the floor. This takes tremendous balance, so stand beside a wall or a chair if necessary. Find your drishti gaze at a object or something on the floor that is non-moving, and this will help with your balance. Up the difficulty by moving your arms in front of you, reaching forward beside your head. Hold this pose for the count of 10 seconds, then repeat on the other side. 10 seconds or 5 breaths. I usually try to do 5 breaths. If extending your arms is too hard, bringing your hands to heart center is good as well. Next is dancer pose. This is probably more of an intermediate pose, and I wouldn't recommend getting into it if you aren't very experienced in practicing yoga, or if you haven't warmed up. This is not a pose to practice if you're cold. Basically, I wouldn't necessarily do this before a run. I implement this into my daily yoga practice. So when I do this pose, I'm already warm and I'm not going to risk the health of my hip joints or my quads or anything like that. So begin by standing tall with your arms at your side. Shift your weight to your left leg. Move your right leg behind you as you hinge forward with your left hip. Reach your right leg back and grasp the outside of your right foot as you lift the left from the inner and outer thigh. Reach your left arm toward the ceiling with your chest slightly lifted. Your hips should be square with the floor. Balance on your left leg for 5 to 10 seconds and remember to breathe. Repeat on the other side. Next is eagle pose. From standing, cross your left knee over your right thigh as you simultaneously bend your right knee to sit into a slight squat position. Lock the top of your left foot behind your right calf. Stand with your back against a wall if you need some assistance holding this position. Cross your elbows with the left under the right until you can bring the backs of your palms together. Breathe slowly as you hold for 10 seconds, then repeat on your left side. Eagle pose is also great if you are in a headstand, or eagle pose legs, are great for headstands as well. Pigeon pose is easily one of my favorite poses for after a long run. It's really easy for runners' hips to get really tight and just really constrained and shortened, basically. So pigeon pose is great for everything, for my yoga practice, for running, and I think that it's something that all yogis and runners and everybody should do every day. So start on your hands and knees. Slide your left leg out behind you and your top of the foot resting on the mat or toes curled under. I always look back behind me to make sure that my leg is straight and aligned. Bring your right leg forward and bend your knee out toward the right wrist as you bring the foot to rest beside your left wrist. Lower your hips to the ground as you gently settle into the stretch with your upper body hinging forward. Hold for 10 seconds before repeating on the other side. If I was teaching this pose in a yoga practice, or if I'm practicing yoga, I always inhale and bring the chest up before I come down into sleeping pigeon. Next is pyramid pose. I found this was a great stretch for my Achilles. So start standing tall in the middle of your mat facing sideways. Step your left foot and right foot out so that they are approximately 4 feet apart. Turn your right foot inward slightly and nudge in your left foot outward a full 30 degrees. Keeping hips squared, gently fold your upper body over your extended left leg and reach your fingertips to your mat or blocks. Alternatively, you might hold your arms behind you and reach the top of your head to hover above the floor as you stretch. Hold this pose between 5 and 10 seconds, then repeat on the other side. Lastly is child's pose. Begin on your knees and then hinge at your back so you are sitting on your ankles, the tops of your feet on the ground. Lean your upper body forward so your arms reach the floor in front of you. Palms down, your buttocks should remain on your heels. Gently rest your head on the floor as you move your arms back beside your legs. Palms now facing upward. Keep breathing and hold this position for at least 8 seconds. Those are all the poses and the postures that I have that are really useful for my running and even my yoga sequences. So thanks for watching and follow me on Instagram.